So let's just, we're right at the top of the hour, just a couple minutes past. Let's get started. And some people will jump on as we go. Here's the deal. I want to have a conversation around this craziness that's going on in the marketplace, the things that we are in. And I appreciate you taking the time to be here. I know that a lot of us are, depending where we're at, but a lot of us are under lockdown. I've been in the house here, not going out. I mean, I'm going to get the mail. I'm going to the grocery store every once in a while, and I take a bit of a walk. But we're cooped up. I mean, the beautiful thing is, thank God, I love spending time with my wife, because if that weren't the case, oh my gosh, this thing would be crazy. So, that's the thing that we're all looking at, is going, what's happening in the world? And I want to give some perspective to this. Is that the reality is that as much as it's scary times and challenging times, if we get perspective, we may start to understand and be able to navigate it. It doesn't mean that we aren't going to have difficult times. It doesn't mean that we're not going to have some challenges to go through in the process. So I'm going to move out of this, and I'm going to go to my iPad, where I can start to write some things and have a conversation around it. Because those of you who know me know that I write and I draw things and I do things. So here's the way I see this. We had a health problem. We had a health scare, and it's not a scare. It's a reality. Something that I don't think I ever imagined in all my life that I would see at the proportions that we are seeing this virus spread. And I don't pretend to know the answer on that at all. I mean, I'm not. I know nothing about science. Okay, I tried using a Bunsen burner, and I lit my sister's hair on fire. So I steer clear of chemicals, chemistry, and science, and all that stuff. I deal with numbers. I deal with businesses. I deal with entrepreneurs. That's what I know. That's where I stick. And there's some brighter minds working on it. I know that there's some things in the works that hopefully will get us on the other side of this virus. But here's my point: is that the virus, the health problem, created an economic problem. In order to fight the virus, they had to shut things down. We had an economy that was going well. We had an economy that was doing well and moving forward, and unemployment was down, and profits were up, and stock market was up, and real estate was up, and we won't get into it, but debt was up, but everything was up. Everything was optimistic. Consumer confidence was doing pretty good. And then we had to literally overnight put the stop on it and stop the economy. And so what happens is that we end up having stock market drops of 2,000 points, 3,000 points, 1,000 points, and then it goes up 800 points, and then it drops 2,000. And today it was down 600. Yesterday it was up. So I mean, it's all over the board. And so one of the problems is that everyone's they're coming to me and they're asking these questions, going, "Hey Mel, what do we do? Are we going to get out of this? What's going to happen? Is this really economic Armageddon?" And I'm not going to lie and say that some businesses will not survive this. Some people will have to completely rebirth out of all of this. That is a truth, and we'll deal with that, and we'll talk about some of the things to hopefully try and prevent that. But I think that one of the things that's happening right now is we're spending a lot of time focusing on the things that we cannot control, rather than focusing on the things we can control. Here's what's happening, and I'm just going to put this up here. This is a graph that we created of the stock market going from 2001 to today. It's a couple days old. Okay, but what's happening is that we look at the stock market and we just look at the direction of the market. Now I'm going to ask you to interact with me, whether it's in the chat or on the camera. That's fine, but I'm going to ask you to interact with me because when we look at this chart, what's happening is that we see things like this, like this, like this, like this, like that. And we start to freak out going, oh my gosh, what's happening? And then we see this, because this is what we're dealing with right now. Okay. This one little piece that took a huge drop. I mean, we lost 9,000 points at one point in time. So like the question, but here's my question for you. If we look at this chart, yeah, absolutely. But if we look at this chart, what is the general direction of the market? Pop it in the chat. Give me a thumbs up or down. Yeah, the fact is that in the long term, the general direction of the market is this way. Do I expect that to continue? At some point, yes. Do I expect it to be tomorrow? Not likely, okay? Not likely. But if we see this, then we start to understand that if we get a different perspective, if we start to move out, we start to look at things differently. Let's ask another question. Have we dealt with something like the coronavirus before? Not clearly in the magnitude necessarily. The last pandemic that I've seen is like 1911 or 1918. But let's just, 1918. But let's just look at it. Did we have any kind of epidemics? This is the same chart. And now we're starting to look at this and we're saying, oh, that's when SARS happened. The avian flu, the swine flu, MERS. MERS is another coronavirus. It happens to be Ebola, Zika, and now what we're in the middle of here. So it's not new that we've had some sort of epidemic, pandemic, but not to this magnitude. So clearly it's not to this magnitude that shut down economies worldwide, globally, where people are. I was just talking to someone yesterday. I'm doing so many interviews around this. It's crazy, but I was doing an interview yesterday, and they were telling me that they literally are not allowed to go out of their house. That if they go out of there, so how they do it is that based upon, and I remember this, some of you may remember this, some of you may be old enough to remember this. You remember the gasoline wars and all that? We had gasoline rationing at one point, and I was a kid at the time, but if you had an odd numbered license plate, you could go on certain days of the week to get gas. And if you had an even number license plate, you could go on a certain number of days to get gas. They're doing the same thing with the grocery stores right now in some areas. And the person I was talking to yesterday was basically saying on even days, on an even license plate based on your car, you can go to the grocery store on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. And if you have an odd license plate, you can go on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, you're not allowed. And you can't be on the streets. I mean, we're shut down. And there is no way to not have an economic impact. That is exactly why you're related to me so well, Kevin. We're shut down because there's no way that it's not going to have an economic impact. Now, people have said, we went into correction territory and we went into a bear market. Now, bear market, just so you know, is a down market. Bear market is we've gone 20% down or greater from the high. And that happened a few weeks ago. And so they said, well, okay, we've got this virus, we've got the bear market. What's next? Have we done that before? Well, let's just look at it again. Here's a couple of bear markets. Here and here since 2001. This bear market happened to last 2.1 years. This one happened to last 1.3 years. This was the 2008. Some of you will remember that. 2001, I remember also. But the bear markets on average, and now we're in one here, and we don't know how long it's going to last. Okay, we don't know how long it's going to last. And a lot of it has to do with the virus and getting our arms around the virus right now. And so the sooner we can do that and get people back to productivity and productive work, we will see some shifts. But the longer that takes, the more difficult it's going to be. And so we need to understand that, and it leads to some other things that we'll talk about. But as we look at this, here's what I know from historical facts. The average bear market lasts about 1.3 years. Okay? The average loss during that time is about 38%. Okay. The average bull market, now the market's going up, lasts about 6.6 years. We just came out of an 11-year bull market, the longest in history. 6.6 years. And the average return on that during that time is 339%. So here's what I'm getting at. The issue is that if we stick around long enough, if we take a long enough view, the tendency is the market's going to recover and it's going to go up. The question is, how do we sustain ourselves and how do we get past this? How do we get through this in a way that allows us to navigate it and be okay on the other side of this? Here's the challenge. And remember, at the very beginning, I said we are spending our time focused on things that we can't control. Here's what's happening is most people are focused on this. They're sitting there focused on this whole downturn, and that's all they see. They're staring at the TV. They're watching the news channel. I don't care which news channel you support. First off, I don't think any of them should be called news because they're more opinion than news. But what they're doing is they're reporting the coronavirus count. And it's important, okay? It is important to know, but we're watching the tickers. We're watching the tickers of the market go down and up and down and up. And then we're watching the coronavirus ticker go up. And we're staring at it and we're watching it. And neither one of those can we control. It's like we're watching a telethon and watching the numbers go. And when we're staring completely at this only and not taking the broader view and staring at the negative news and the negative talk about it, about stuff that we can't control, we are completely out of control. And that's where the problem is. That's where we start to feel bad. That's where we have the challenges. So the idea behind what I want to go through today is how do we take you from chaos to control? How do we control the things that we know we can control and move through those things in a way that allows us this to happen? So here's something that I know. So one of the businesses that I've had, I had for 11 years, I had my own martial arts studio. And one of the things that we did there at the martial arts studio is we would spar. We'd put the gloves on and we would fight. And I used to have the kids, some of the parents would come to me and say, my kid doesn't like getting hit and it's not, we were controlled. It wasn't bad, but they said, so is it possible for them not to spar? And I said, no, it's not possible for them not to spar. They need to spar. And they said, well, but why? Why is that so important? And I said, because the lessons that we learn in sparring will be lessons that are life lessons. And here's what I mean by that. The first time someone gets hit, they freeze. The first time someone gets hit, they fall down. The first time someone gets hit, they're in shock. Right now, there's a whole lot of people that got hit for the first time and they're in shock. They're frozen. They're falling down. But why we do the sparring on a regular basis is after they get past that initial shock, they can get up and they go, hey, wasn't bad. I'm resilient. I can keep going. And right now, we're starting to move past the initial shock of, oh my God, what's happening? And so now we got to look at it and say, what do we do? What are the next things to do? Because we get past the shock, which leads me to the next thing is that really, well, let me give you this. Let me just talk about something that happened to me. Because like I said, I don't know all the answers, and I do know this. I've made a whole lot of mistakes. I've been fortunate enough to do enough things right to be successful. I've also been blessed enough to do enough things wrong to be educational, and hopefully that makes sense to you. Is that the reality is is when we look at some of this stuff, it's in these failures that we start to understand the things that we need to do. So like I said, I don't do everything right. In 2005, now I'm a financial guy. I'm a CPA. For those of you who don't know my background, I'm a CPA by education. I've been an entrepreneur for decades. I say I'm an entrepreneur by exhilaration because I love the entrepreneurial game. I love being an entrepreneur because I believe that entrepreneurs, they have a dream and they make dreams come to life. Now they make the dream come to life in their business, but they also affect the dreams of the people they serve, that they're making their lives better with their dream. And I love that energy around that. And so, but I'm a financial guy. I'm a CPA. I bought and sold businesses. I was valuing businesses for a living, buying and selling businesses. I was an expert witness testifying in trial on financial matters. I'm the guy that they would hire to testify to put someone like a Bernie Madoff in jail. So you'd think I'd understand some things. But in 2005, I got caught up in a Ponzi scheme. And in that Ponzi scheme, it literally wiped out 1/3 of everything I owned. Now we're talking, there was me and two buddies that got involved. There was other people involved, but between the three of us, we lost $4.5 million. Okay. $4.5 million, a lot of money. 2005, we lost it. So there was three of us in it. Let me tell you what happened with the three of us, because I think this leads to this next idea, is that the one of us turned around and shrunk their life down to fit what they had left. And they decided to continue living based on that. The other one destroyed his business, destroyed his marriage, and destroyed his liver, and is just coming up for air. And that's 15 years ago. And then I had an opportunity to look at it literally within 18 months. Not only did we recover what was lost in the Ponzi scheme, but we surpassed it by 3 times, by 300%. We tripled it. Okay. Now I don't tell you that for any other reason but this. Why was I able to do that? Now, I was a single full-time dad of this little boy. And at the time, now he wasn't so little at the time, but I was raising him from 6 years old. And when this thing happened, I realized that Jeremy, my son, was watching. And if I shrunk down, curled up in the corner in a fetal position and hoped that the storm would pass, that would be the role model he would see. That would be how he saw is the proper way to deal with adversity. And so the biggest reason that got me to get up and say, no, I may have lost money, but I didn't lose skills. I didn't lose my mind. I lost assets. I can recover because I built it once before. We can get through this. And the biggest reason that I did that was solely to show Jeremy the way to try and deal with adversity, because I didn't want to give him the wrong lesson in the process. And a lot of the things that I did in life that were uncomfortable were because I wanted to make sure that he saw the right thing. And so I tell you this because I think you have a choice. And if I look at these things, this is Jeremy today, him and I. This is the guy. Just so you know, this is the guy. Yes, an hour of stupid can cost you a bundle. This is the guy that ripped me off in the Ponzi scheme. 9 years in prison right now, and everything. And so, but I think that here's where this comes down to, is that each and every single one of us have 3 choices right now. Okay, let's look at it this way. You're sitting here at today. Okay. And there's a ton of uncertainty. We don't know when business is going to be open again. We don't know when the virus is going to be corralled. We don't know any of that stuff at the moment. Okay. But the one thing we do know is that time is going to pass. And let's just say that 3 years down the road, time has passed. The question is not what got you here. The question is, who will you become as we go through this? Who are you going to be on the other side of this? And so we know that time is going to pass no matter what. The question is, what are we going to do during that time? And there's another timeline that I want you to start to think about, and that's this, is there's going to be a point in time where I call it the tipping point. Now, I don't know when that's going to be. It could be 90 days. It could be 180 days. It could be a year. It could be 18 months. I don't know when things turn around, when things shift. But let's just, for this illustration, let's just call it a year and a half. Okay, so it's going to be 1.5 years. So at some point, things will tip. Now, I anticipate and hope that it will tip sooner. We get to make some choices right now. We can get to make some choices right now. And people are making choices. So let's look at what the choices or the possibilities of those choices are. There are those that are going to look at this and decide that they're going to just curl up in the corner. They're going to do nothing and hope this passes and just kind of let it go. And what's going to happen is they're going to end up doing this. And if they have a business or something like that, they're going to end up doing this. They're going to end up completely destroyed. Okay. They're the ones that I call inactive. They're not doing things that they can do. They're paralyzed. They're frozen, and we'll give you the tools to kind of move through that. Then there's another group of folks. And those folks, they're doing stuff, okay? But they're kind of all over the place doing stuff. And ultimately, they get over here. But it's been a ride, okay? These are the people that I call reactive. So they're reacting to the media. They're reacting to what friends are saying. They're reacting to everything that's going on around them. And they're making a determination, a split determination, and they're moving that. So they're constantly whiplashing the decisions that they make. And in the end, they existed. They just got by, okay? They existed. Then there's another group. And this group is going to make a lot of decisions. And they're going to take a lot of action. And they're going to do a lot of things. Those are the ones that I call proactive. And they're going to end up at that 3-year mark. At that 3-year mark, they're going to end up in a situation where they're elevated. Not because they knew what to do, but because they did things proactively, systematically, and with a strategy. They did things about the things that were in their control and left alone the things that were outside their control. Here's the challenge. When we start to look at this, if we just take this section here, those lines are really close together. And you can't tell who's necessarily inactive, reactive, or proactive during that time. But as we approach the tipping point, the distance between the lines starts to widen. The distance between your survival and your ability to thrive starts to widen to a point where at some point you may be at a point of no return. And so if we understand that, then my question for you is this: what choice are you going to make to live by over the next 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 months, year? Is it 1? Is it 2? Or is it 3? Do me a favor, type that in the chat box while I grab a inaction 3. I suspected I wasn't going to see any 1s. If I did, I was coming through. 3, absolutely. So there's a ton of 3s in here. And that's the point, is that if we're going to be proactive, let's be proactive with a plan. I'm not going to roll over and curl up and wait for this to pass over. there may be opportunities, there may be challenges, and yet we're going to get through it. I got through it in 2001. I got through it in 2008. I got through it in the Ponzi scheme. I got through it when I was in a bike accident. I got through it with cancer last year. We get to make some decisions. Now, there are things, like I said, we can't control. There are things that we can control. So what I think we need to realize is this. What we've lost more than anything in society right now is we've lost a vision for a compelling future. And what we need to do is make some new choices and recapture that vision for a compelling future and start making the decisions for that future. We got to deal with the stuff we're dealing with now, but know that there's still a compelling future. That's why I started with these charts, to say there is a future out there, and it's up. And so we just need to be able to go through this and move through it. I love this saying, and that is this, is that so many people, if you just type a Y in, if you've heard this saying before, it said, I'll believe it when I see it. Because so many people will ask and say, I'll believe it when I see it. But here's the reality. Disney had it right, I think. So Walt Disney looked at it and he said, until you believe it, you won't see it. So I'm asking you to believe in yourself. I'm asking you to believe in the future. I'm asking you to believe that this too shall pass. And I know that I'm asking a lot of you, because some of you are in pain, and we'll give you some tools. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the CARES Act and some things for you to do. But until you start to believe in it, you're not going to take the proactive actions to do it. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, type a Y in there. And then I want to start walking you through the Money Chaos Navigator. I'm literally going to take you through, and I'm going to give you the steps and the tools to make it happen. Cool. All right. So this is a framework that I use when it comes down to people in crisis, people in challenge, especially in business. There are three things that I think we need to do. But like I said earlier, what we're really trying to do is figure out, how do we take someone, you, to go from chaos to control. Okay. That's what this model is meant to do, is to start to move you towards the degree of control. The more we can start getting control of the things we can control, the less out of control we will be, and the better we will feel in the process. Because right now, here's what's happening, is there's a group of people out there that are running around frenetic. They're anxious, they're worried, they're struggling. This thing doesn't have spell check on it, so excuse my spelling. They're fearful, and they're frozen. The thing is that a lot of the folks that are frozen, they don't want to make a decision. I sit on a board of directors, and I'm on our pension committee. So we're running a pension that has an excess of $30 million in it. So we watch the market like a hawk, and we're on constant calls to do that. And the thing is, inaction is still a decision. So realize that the choice that we're making, if we're choosing to do nothing, is still a choice. And they're frozen, and they're choosing to do nothing, even though there might just be little things that I can control. And so, yeah, the lizard brain is controlling them, absolutely. On the other side, there's also those that are out there that are in a hole, and they're digging, and they're continuing to dig. They're drowning, and they're declining. Now, when I say declining, I mean declining in multiple ways. Their health, their psyche, their relationships, all of those things are in trouble in that respect. And then there's those that know they want to do something about it, but they're not sure what to do. They say, I got to do something. I got to do something. And I don't mean this in any disparaging way, because we all go through these stages a little bit. So they're clueless as to what to do. They're aimless, as in anything as far as strategy or anything like that. And ultimately, they're directionless. They don't know which way to turn. Okay. But we can solve these problems. We can solve these problems with three things. And the three things that I think we need to look at in doing this are these. Is that the first thing that we need to do, and this is step number one, and I'll give you the action steps to this. The first thing that we need to do is stabilize things. Stabilize. Okay. So the first thing that we need to do is stabilize things. We got to stop the fearfulness. We got to stop being frozen. We've got to get some stability and foundation under us. You know, I'll give you another martial arts analogy. You know, people would say, how do you punch harder? You get a stronger foundation. Your stance is better. Your body connection's better. And there you have strength. And so, what were the words on the left, starting with digging? Digging, drowning, and declining. Digging, drowning, and declining, Suzette. So we stabilize things, and I'll give you the four things that I want you to do in this process. So this is number one. Number two is we find and build we find an access to a surplus. What do I mean by that? Income, cash flow, something. And we'll talk about some things that I think you can do here to make that happen. That stops us from digging. It stops us from declining. It stops us from drowning. The third step is that we need to strategize. We need to have a strategy. We don't just wander aimlessly and come up, say, I'll just kind of wing it. We're not winging it during these times. These are critical times. We need to have our critical thinking on us. We got to be critically researching. We got to make some critical decisions on an ongoing basis. So we got to strategize. When we do this correctly, here's what's going to happen is when we move from frenetic, fearful, and frozen, we end up confident, calm, and active. Okay. Does that make sense? On the other side, if we start to find solutions to our surplus problem, what we find is we feel like we're making progress. So we feel more fulfilled. So we're more fulfilled. In the process, we're now, instead of drowning, we're swimming. We actually feel like we're making progress. Okay. And then the last thing is that we ultimately start to rise up. We start to rise up in the process. And then when we get the strategy right, instead of being clueless, aimless, and directionless, we have clarity in a direction. We're intentional in everything we do. And we're targeted. In other words, we know exactly where we're going and why. Does this make sense? Does this make sense to you? And dealing with that? Okay. Because I want to now break this down and say, okay, so what are the 4 steps that you're going to do for each of these? And then I've got a gift for you too, because I decided to give you some worksheets to make some of these steps easier to do. And I'm going to show you how you can get those downloaded for free. No opt-in, nothing. It's just for you all. Okay. So let's just talk about stabilize for a moment. What are the 4 things that I think you need to do to get stabilized? The first is this. See if I can fit them in here. The first is this. I want you to get real. Look, the bottom line is this. Until we're prepared to get real with our situation, to really get clear on it and be okay with where it is, then we can't move from it. Until I was prepared to accept the fact that I made some bad decisions, ended up in a Ponzi scheme, and wiped out 1/3 of everything I owned, I could not come from that. Here's an interesting thing. I was on an interview a week ago for a podcast, and the person asked a question. He says, and I know some of my listeners are going to have a difficult time with this question. And he asked the question about, what do you do when someone is saying, God, I can't believe I ended up here. I can't believe that I'm in this place. I can't believe the decisions I made put me here. And they're beating themselves up. And, you know, my initial answer and response is really to, we need to get over it. And get over it in this way, because I think this is really important to understand, is that what got us here doesn't really matter. What got us here doesn't really matter. Beating ourselves up about the fact that maybe you have more credit card debt than you like, that maybe you have more weight than you would want, or maybe you have less cash than you have, or the business isn't in the position that you want. Beating yourself up about that isn't going to help you at all. It's going to dig you further in the hole. It's going to get you to stay frozen. It's going to get you to be frenetic. It's going to get you to not do the things that you need to do. And even worse, I think, is when we start to ask ourselves questions like, why is this happening? Why is this happening to me? Why is this virus and the economics, and how do we get here? And I'll tell you why I know that this is important, is because some of you know that June of last year, so June 13th last year, I was diagnosed with bladder cancer. I mean, let me set the stage. I had just come off speaking on some of the some of the top stages. I just got done masterminding with some of the top entrepreneurs in Puerto Rico. We were in Puerto Rico together. They're running $100 million companies, you know, tens of $1 million companies. We're masterminding together. We literally flew back on a private jet. Okay, and then just weeks later, I'm in a hospital bed, not sure if I'm going to survive. They're looking at me saying, "You've got a 7.5 centimeter tumor in your bladder. It's on your prostate. We might have to remove the prostate. We can't see the kidney. We might have to put a tube in. We might have to put a bag in. And if it's really bad, we got to remove the bladder." Like, I'm going, what's life like without a bladder? What's, you know, how do you do that? He says, we'll cross that bridge if we ever get there. And so I found myself in those first couple of weeks, and there's some friends on here right now that know, and they were with me during this, in some dark times, asking myself, why, how, why is this happening to me? I was healthy. I was taking care of myself. I was eating. I was going to the gym. I had a sweet tooth, but I thought I was taking care of myself. I don't have the risk factors. I'm not a smoker. I'm not a drinker. I'm not around chemicals. How is this happening to me? No one in my family has ever had cancer. And I found myself in that frenetic space that wasn't going to solve and serve the cancer and try to help out. And until I realized this, the why I was searching for at the time was behind me, but that's not where your why is. The why is in front of you. The why, I believe, the why that I was given cancer is so I would realize some things, so I could make it mean something positive. Now, granted, I've been 2 surgeries, series of treatments. As of December, they've declared me completely cancer-free. So I want to close that loop for you before you turn around and go, oh my God. And I feel great, and I'm energized, and everything is great. They're amazed at how we did it. And that's a whole nother story for another time of how we did that. But the reality is I realized that my why around the cancer was in front of me. I had the opportunity to make it mean something. And the way I'm doing it is to serve, is to turn around and say, I navigated cancer financially. I navigated 30 years financially, and people are doing it wrong. How do we do it? And it's my job to put that out there, to help people through these things. That allows me to make sense of the cancer. So I think that if you're looking at today and saying, why is this happening? Why? Look forward and define the why. Make the why yours, not looking for it in the past. Why did this happen? Let's make it yours. And that's what I mean by getting real. I want you to start looking at long-term views versus short-term views. We'll deal with the short-term problems, but let's look at the long-term view, understanding that I got to deal with what the now is, which we'll talk about what to do in the next 6 weeks. But we got to deal with what the now is. but with the vision to what the future is, that brighter vision, and moving from there. The second thing to do to stabilize, the second piece is to review your cost structure. Okay. I mean, like, this is what I mean. Get your bank statements out. If you're running a business and your personal, I want all your bank statements out on the table. I know this could be a painful experience. I want all your credit card statements on the table. Okay. I want them all on the table. And I want you to go line by line and say, that's an auto ship. Do I need that? Oh, am I really using that software? Is it in a business, in the business sense, we got to look at things from an ROI standpoint. In other words, does this expense lead to additional sales or additional revenue down the road? Now, there may be some fixed expenses that are there. We'll talk about what to do with some of those fixed expenses in another section here. But I want you to go through everything you can and start redlining the things you do not need. Which leads to this third one. We'll talk about how you redline it, and that's understanding what your wants versus your needs are. We tend to start to define our wants as needs. And so we say, I need this, I need this. Listen, the question is, do you need it for sustenance? Do you need it for shelter? Do you need it to keep yourself healthy? Do you need it for those things? If you don't, if it's not a need to sustain the business or sustain yourself, then it's probably a want. And it's the wants that are optional right now. If we need to get some cash, if we need to give some breathing room, we want to start cutting the costs that we can as quickly as we can. And that means looking at the things that are truly wants, not needs. The things that might be luxuries for now that we'll have to postpone for a little bit, and we can pick them up later, okay? And I know that this is a hard exercise to go through, but the sooner you get oxygen in time like this, if you're struggling, the sooner you get oxygen, the better off you're gonna be. Because when you're panicked, if you've ever been underwater, or you're panicked in a way where you can't think straight when the oxygen's in there. I tell a story in my book about being in Japan, training with the grandmaster in Japan, and I had this phobic response to being choked. And literally I walked in one day and he wanted to solve the problem. Now in Japan, when you're training in the martial arts in Japan in a small little town outside of Tokyo, and he's from a samurai bloodline, they do things differently. So I walk in and he says to me, we're going to work on chokes today. And he finds the biggest guy in the dojo, in the school. The good news is I was in Japan, so they weren't that big, okay? And gets him on my back and he starts to choke me. I literally got choked out 4 times. Sensei's bringing me back. I mean, I'm blacked out because I'm panicking. And then he says to me, he says, when you stop panicking, you'll understand how to respond. And he says, take a rest, come back. When I came back, I relaxed and I wasn't panicking. So I was able to respond and I was able to defend myself. It's the same thing here, is that we got to get you the oxygen so you can respond and get these other things in place that we're going to talk about. Okay. Does this make sense? If it makes sense, type a Y in the, yes, also awesome. All right. So then the fourth thing, which is, they all feed on each other, is I need you to start thinking about how do you build a cash cushion. We got to build a cushion. I'm going to invite you to try to figure out how do you get 3 to 6 months worth of cash. Now you could sit back and go, I should have done this before. Right. But remember, we agreed we're not going to beat ourselves up about the things we didn't do in the past. Have you learned? And will you do it differently in the future? Great. That's what I want to know. Now let's get you through this and we'll do it differently in the future, and we'll give you some more tools in the future. But right now, I want you to start thinking in the construct of, how do I get cash? How do I build a cash cushion in order to do that? And this is a tough one for some people. Part of it is cutting costs. The other part of it is remember going back to wants and needs? If you're not sure how to get a cash cushion, walk around your apartment, your condo, your house for a little bit and take a stack of Post-it notes, okay? Take a stack of Post-it notes and stick a Post-it note on everything in the place that you aren't using, you don't need, and that you may not need. Go in the garage, dust off the things, and do that. And start selling it. I'm trying to convert it to cash because I need cash in the bank to give you the breathing room you need. Listen, I got so much technology. Okay, don't tell my wife that I can sell some of the technology. Okay, but I got so much technology that I buy stuff, I use it for a while, and then I'm not using it anymore. And so like if I got strapped for cash, take that and sell it. Am I going to get top dollar? Probably not. But the point is for us to get past this point. It's not to maximize the dollars out. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm going to tell you to start selling things if you need to start developing that cash cushion. If not, if you've got a business that's running or you have a cash cushion already, I want 3 to 6 months to start. 3 to 6 months to start. Ultimately, for entrepreneurs, when I work with my entrepreneurs and my affluence blueprint and all of that, we talk about 9 to 18 months worth of cash on hand. 9 to 18 months worth of cash on hand. So an average of 12 months, call it. And the reason for that is because of the peaks and valleys in business. Things can shift, technology can change, algorithms can change, things happen. Look what happened with me. I didn't expect cancer. I shut everything down, literally for 6 months, focused 100% on me. But because I had a foundation in there, I was able to navigate it. So at some point, we're going to want to build that. But right now, I just want a small cash store for you guys to just breathe a little bit. Okay? So those are the things that I would do for stabilize. Let's move over to surplus. So this is about building a flow in, a cash flow in. And so the first thing that I'm going to tell you to do is look at the places where you're digging, where you're going deeper and deeper in debt, and stop digging. Cancel it, get out of it, stop it, postpone it, suspend it. You've got no better time than the day to try and negotiate with things, to put things, to defer things off if you can, or cancel things. Everyone's expecting it. And so one of the things to do is to stop going deeper in the hole. If you are in the red, if you're going negative every month, we got to figure out why, cut the costs, and then we'll figure out other ways to bring income in, which is really the next piece, is finding incremental income. Now, some of the things I'm telling you to do might feel extreme to you, but all I'm trying to do is get you to the other side of this. Then we'll give you tools to navigate so this will never, ever happen again to you. But right now, we got to navigate. We are in the rapids. Okay, so we're in the rapids, and it's class 4 rapids. You ain't getting out of the boat. We're going to paddle, we're going to work, and we're going to get through this. We'll get on the other side, I promise you, and then we'll sit at the campfire and enjoy ourselves. All right? I promise you. So incremental income. One of the first things to think about in business, if we're in business, is how to reconnect with my customers, because your customers are just as scared as you might be. They may be thinking to run for the hills. They're probably getting the same. Look, if one of your customers is on here saying, hey, Mel told me to cut costs, and they call you up and say, listen, Mel told me to cut costs and I'm cutting you, you got to be prepared to have a conversation. That conversation can't be about the cost. The conversation has to be around the value you provide and how you're going to help them through this in a greater way. That the tools, the stuff that you bring to their life is going to enrich them and equip them to move to the other side. So that's the first thing, is really trying to find other areas of incremental income. The thing to realize is that most of you on here have knowledge, wisdom, expertise. Even if you have been put put out for a little bit or furloughed or whatever, you've got a journey of expertise that you should be able to start monetizing. You can get a free Zoom account, or you can get Zoom for 15 bucks. You can do some training, accept some money. I'm not talking about a lot of money, but if I can get you to start making a couple $100 more a week by doing some of these things, a couple $100 more a week, we'll talk about the CARES Act, but a couple $100 more a week equates to $1,000, $2,000 a month. It starts giving you breathing room. That's all I'm trying to do here, is to get you to that point. So I want to start to build that incremental income. Looking for ways, believe it or not, some of your clients might look for ways to say, I actually, in this time, I'm so lost, I need more work from you. I need more handholding. I need more intimacy in the sense of you being by my side. How do we work closer so you can help me navigate these waters? But you won't know that until you do this other thing. And that is to pick up the phone and have conversations with your customers. I mean, when's the last time that you picked up the phone and had a conversation with your customers? Just the other day, I'm sitting there, and it was in the evening. It was really off the wall. I belong to a place called the Magic Castle. Magic Castle is a private magic club that was built in the 1960s, a Victorian mansion in the Hollywood Hills. And I've been a member there for decades. And I get the phone rings, I pick it up, I don't know who it is, and they said, hi, this is so-and-so from AMA, the Academy of Magical Arts. And I said, I'm one of the board members. And I'm thinking, oh God, they voted me off the island, what's going on? And they turned around and said, we're just calling our members to see how you're doing and if there's anything we can do to help, okay? Well, when's the last time you did that? Especially now. Instead of corralling yourself and saying, I'm in it for me, I got to figure myself out. What about reaching out? Because even if we lose them as a client now, that loyalty, that gesture will go a long way to bringing them back in the future. Make the one-on-one calls with your key clients. Have the conversations to do that. The third thing to do is this: repackage your skills or offers. I've got right now a friend and a client who's a physical therapist, and we're literally repackaging his work on physical therapy to do it all virtually. Because these people are still trying to get healed. They can't get their hands on them. They don't want to get close and all that. So we're redoing his packaging and repackaging his services and everything virtually. Now there's some things you can't do. I mean, if you need a filling filled, he's not going to coach you through drilling the hole, drilling the tooth and all that stuff. But there are things that can be done. And so we need to be smart about it. I see Bob doing that. So we get a chance to do that. The question is we start to get so focused on, this is the only way I know how to make money. Really, it's because that's the way we trained ourselves. We need to start to think about, how can I make money other ways with the things that I know? So this physical therapist is now selling his treatments virtually and doing these treatments virtually for his clients and still getting paid. I don't have any clue how that's going to work out with medical insurance and all that. We're dealing with that as a separate issue. There's a place right up the street here called Grit Cycle. So it's a spin cycle place. And no one's going in there to work out. You know what they're doing? They're renting their cycles out to individuals on a monthly basis to bring money in, to offset costs. We need to start thinking about things very, very differently. And repackaging our skills and offers is one of them. Ask yourself this, especially if you've got memberships or reoccurring customers, how can you provide more for the same? In other words, more value for the same cost. So a lot of clients, I've got some clients that are in the coaching and business, or they're selling programs, but what they've decided to do is they've added a bunch of high touch coaching calls. So they're now, wasn't promised to them. It wasn't part of the program, but they know that they need the support. They said, listen, we're going to do 1 or 2 group coaching calls a week to help you through this. And we're just going to do it. Not charge them anymore, but they're going to get more value for less. Keep them on board. Keep them coming back. Okay? Or the alternative is to sit back and say, how can you give them the same value, the same for less? In other words, and I'm not saying discount. You could, but I don't like that. But changing their payment structure possibly to give them some breathing room. So, hey, I'm gonna continue to work with you. We're gonna do this. I'm gonna cut the payment by 25%. We'll put it on the back end, or we'll suspend it, or I'm gonna give you 30 days or 60 days free. You know, let's just defer it. So think about those things, how you can do that in doing that. So make that happen. Aaron just did that today, 2 bonus coaching calls a week with my travel agent membership. Absolutely. It's the right way to do it. So we need to look at it in that construct. And then the last thing is this. Climb your process chain. What do I mean by that? Great example, and I heard this from Dan Miller, and it's such a great example. Restaurants can't have people come in and dine in. Okay? So what do? They start doing takeout and delivery, because the problem they're solving is getting food on someone's table. And so they said, well, how else do we solve it? And so what they're doing is they're moving up the process chain in order for them to get food on the table at the restaurant for their customer. What do they have to do? They got to make the food. Oh, okay. Well, we can make the food and then just get it to them instead of them coming to us. That's one thing. So then they turned around and said, how do we do it in more volume so we're not doing as much in the way of delivery? So they said, well, how about we make their favorite meals and we don't cook them, and we deliver a stack of meals to them, uncooked, but with instructions how to prepare them. So now you step back one more step in the process chain. Then some of them have started to do cooking classes virtually to teach them how to make their meals. Now look, could that mean that when they open back up, the clients don't come? Yeah, but I can promise you this. Every time I try to do a recipe, which isn't very often, every time I try to do a recipe, it never tastes or looks the same as in the picture or at the restaurant. So I think that you can do that in that way. Eric, it's great to have you on. Let's see if we can get to some of your questions and all that too. And I have a call that I want to make with you too, Eric. So I haven't forgot about you. So start to think about, what are you doing before in fact, a friend of mine is on, I don't know if he's still on, he was on earlier, but he asked me this question: before they get to you, what do they need to know or do? And start seeing if we can solve that problem. Here's the thing to realize. Whoops, you don't need to go there. Why are we doing that? Let me just go to some place where I can write. Okay. Here's the thing you got to realize is right now, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay. What happens here is is that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, these bottom needs, and this isn't everything. I think I don't remember how many he's got, but the bottom needs are all about their survival. And their existence, okay? This is where most of your customers are right now. Having conversations around this becomes something instrumental to understand. The other side of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is up here. This is self-actualization and some other things. Here's the thing that I know, is that below this line, we're having problem conversations. Above this line, we're having aspiration conversations. But if our customers are down here and we're trying to have aspirational conversations, then guess what? It's not going to land. Solve their problem where they're at right now. And their problem is right here in this segment. It's their existence and their survival that we're trying to do. So what we need to really make sure that we do is climb the process chain and solve the problems that they're dealing with right now. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay? So let's move to strategy. So the first thing to do with strategy is this. Is that I'm going to want you to create a 6-week, a 90-day, and a 180-day plan. Is the plan going to work? Probably going to have to change it almost immediately. But it's the thinking process that goes into it. The plan that I want you to create is a cash flow plan and a business plan if you have a business. Cash flow plan, and a business plan if you have a business. The second thing I want you to do is not be married to the plan, be married to the outcome, and be willing to change the pathway to get to the outcome. But most people are going at this with no plan at all, and that's the challenge. We'll talk about some of the elements that what goes into that plan as we go through this, but let me get through the other ones first, and then I'll come back to this, and then I'm going to show you the tools that I want to get to you. So I said this already. I want you to create a business plan. In other words, how's your business going to survive? 2 major things in business. I got to figure out if I have a sales problem, and I got to figure out if I have a profit problem. Sales problem is customers and revenue coming in the door. How do I make that happen? Profit problem is money I'm keeping in my pocket. That may be cost issues. It may not be enough customers. It may be non-profitable lines of business, all those things. We need to look at the business plan and say, what things matter right now? What am I going to do? And what am I going to shut down or pull back on? Okay. Number 3, I want you all to get a peer group. It doesn't need to be formal. I belong to a couple of masterminds, but I also have some informal folks that whether it's 3, 4, 5 people, or more, but that you are on a Zoom call. We just did a Zoom call last week about this with a group of us, the same group that I was in Puerto Rico with. We got on the call and we said, it was quick. It was an hour or so, but we were like, all right, what's your win? What are you working on? What are you struggling with? How can we help? That's it. But a couple things happen. One, you're accountable to the plan. You're accountable to being proactive. You're accountable to making the steps and doing the steps. 2, you have a sounding board so you don't sit there frozen in confusion and everything. You say, I got this idea, I don't know what, and you're getting perspective. Now, I don't want to hear it when you sit back and go, well, one of the people in my group is, they don't know this stuff. It's actually better if they don't know this stuff because in some cases they give you a perspective you never thought about. Yeah, I can. They've given you a perspective that they never thought about. The reason you have coaches, the reason you have masterminds, the reason you have colleagues, yeah, I'll repeat the questions, Jackie and Arvind. The reasons that you do this is not because they have knowledge, but because sometimes it's because they have knowledge, but most of the time it's because they have perspective. You're stuck like this, and they're out here looking from a different angle. They go, hey, did you think about it from this angle? And you go, oh, I never looked at it that way. That's the power in the peer group. That's the reason we want to do it. So the questions that we ask is, what's your wins? Okay, wins first. Second, what are you working on? What are you struggling with? And how can we help? So wins, working on, struggles, help. That's it. The better and more articulate and specific your question is in the group, the better and more articulate the answers and will be when you get from them. And then the fourth thing, and then I'll get to what the plans might look like. The fourth thing is I want you to create another plan. And that is a wellness plan. These are stressful times, okay? And we can neglect ourselves, we can neglect our sleep, we can neglect our nutrition, we can neglect a lot of things. If you are not well and you're not taking care of yourself, you will not get through this in the same way that you hope to. I had to stop going to the gym, so we went and bought stuff. I mean, Stephanie's not happy about it, but she understands, and she'd rather keep us in our rhythm of working out and everything. So we've got some gym equipment here that we work out every day now. We still take care of ourselves. We still watch our diet. We still do that. But I mean, when I talk about, and the reason I used wellness, nutrition, sleep, hydration, exercise, emotions, psychology. We're siloed. You're stuck indoors. And if you're not getting out, the kids might be home and they're driving you batty. How do you do that? So we got to build a wellness plan that allows you to navigate that so you feel strong, you feel energized, you feel vibrant to navigate through this time. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, just hit me a Y in the, or a thumbs up in the camera. There you go. All right, so let's just talk a little bit about the 6 week, the 90 days, and the 180 days. And I'll go back down where I can write, and then I'll show you these worksheets, and then I'll get to the CARES Act. I don't even know how long we've been going, but are you guys doing all right? Everything cool? Is this valuable to you? Awesome. All right, so here's the deal. Let's just talk about the 6 week one first. Okay, this is the immediate stuff that I want you to work on. The first thing that I want you to do in the 6 weeks is I want you to start to think about what are the things I can renegotiate. If you haven't done so already and you're carrying balances on a credit card, you get on that phone. Now, mind you, you'll be on hold for a while. I had to call my credit card company because they wouldn't let a charge go through that I needed to go through. And literally, I got on there and it says, the hold time will be in excess of 10 minutes. I'm going, okay, not so bad. An hour and 10 minutes later, they pick up the line. I'm going, yeah, it was in excess of 10 minutes, but it was an hour over 10 minutes. But here's the thing. Get on the phone with them and renegotiate your interest rate, your payments, a payment deferral, making sure that they're not going to ding your credit and they're not going to hit you with late fees. They are really negotiable once you get them on the phone. And if the person you talk to doesn't want to negotiate with you, you ask for their supervisor. Okay? You ask for their supervisor. Yeah, the wait time on some of this stuff is crazy. I needed support on Zoom. I logged in for the support on Zoom. It said, your number in the queue, 558. I'm going, yeah, they'll get to me in 3 days. So here's the thing, is that ask for their supervisor if you need to. I did a live on my Facebook page. I won't go deep into it here, but I did a live on my Facebook page. You can find it where I walk through the steps to negotiate with your credit card company. So go ahead if you need to do that. Go through, watch that, because I kind of walk through the steps. The one thing I am going to tell you is this: anytime you negotiate, and this is, I think, the biggest mistake and the biggest failure when people come to negotiate. I negotiate a lot with deals with the IRS, in court, mediation, transactions. The mistake that most people make is that they go into a negotiation feeling like they're going to be across the table from them. So there's you, there's me. I'm going to get from you what I want. You're going to try and get from me what you want. And that's the game that they're playing. It's the wrong game because now everyone's coming to the table saying, what do you want from me? And they're digging their heels in. And that's not the place to negotiate from. The place to negotiate from is to figure out how can you bring yourself so you're sitting side by side with that person and co-creating a solution that makes sense. Sit on the same side of the table. Absolutely, Don. Sit on the same side of the table with them. And one of the easiest ways to do this is to do it. So I was doing I was consulting on a negotiation of a partnership buyout for a group of attorneys. There was one partner that wanted to get bought out by the other partner, and this attorney wanted me to help him with the negotiation. And so he comes to me and he gives me this list of things, and I'm looking at it and I go, "What's that?" And he says, "Those are my demands." I go, "Demands? Cool." I said, "Doug, if we walked in and I handed that list to them and you were on the other side, how do you think they're going to respond?" "Well, not good." I said, "Then why are we going to walk in and give them a set of demands that we know is going to set them off and dig their heels in and they're not going to get anywhere?" And then he says, "Well, how do you suggest we do this?" I said, "Well, we rephrase each and every single of the demands, not in a why question or a what question, but in a how question. Using the word how can we make this happen for you so this can also happen for me? Presupposes that we can co-create a solution together. Using how is a powerful way to phrase your questions in the negotiation. So I would renegotiate credit cards and costs. Spending time to have that conversation, pick up the phone. It's not going to be a surprise during these times. They're expecting that kind of thing to happen at this point in time. I negotiated. I was in the middle of a refinance on the house. I renegotiated it. Okay, we're getting a fixed rate loan lower than it's incredible. So don't tell my bank. Renegotiate it. Second, establish your core offerings or offers. In other words, what are the best things that you can do right now to start generating some cash? We're talking 6 weeks right now. What is it that I can do right now to make this happen? And the third thing is to figure out, identify your critical turning points. What are the milestones that you got to hit that say that this plan is starting to work and that it's taking hold, so we can know that we're going the right way? Does this make sense? That's all I want, and I'll show you. I'll give you access to it. I have a tool here called the 6-week planner that's going to literally walk you through what's your negotiations, your core offerings, how it's essential, the launch dates, and the target date, the expected cash flow or savings, and the accumulated cash. So you're going to be able to walk through all of it by getting this 6-week planner. I'll show you how to do that in a second, because I want you to stay with me here. All right. So I'm going to give you that tool so it'll make it easier for you to do. So let's now look at the 90-day. In the 90-day, I want you to revisit the core offers. Are there any offers I should be adding that maybe take a little longer to get out in the marketplace to create cash flows, so I need to put them off a little bit past the 6 weeks? Okay. Core offers. Then I want you to start to look at core traffic sources. Now, some of this is longer term. Eric, I know that you're on. This is one of the things that I think you need to start looking at. What are the different traffic sources that you can go to? Your knowledge, your skills, your wisdom, your expertise. Who else can we serve with it that it might make sense to get them involved, and making sure that you have that in place. Then the third piece here is this. If we're going to do a longer term structure of a plan, and we're going to put more offers out there, and we're going to look at different traffic sources, we got to determine what our communication rhythm is. Okay. What's the channel? What's the rhythm? Is it weekly? How am I going to talk to them? Are you going to do lives? Are you going to do ads? Are you going to pick up the phone? Are you going to send personal videos, buongiorno videos? All of those things that come into play. And then now let's look at the 180 days. Now, the 180 days, as we start to go out, I think that the feasibility or the dependability, not feasibility, the dependability of your plan starts to go down because we're in such volatile times, we could have to change it tomorrow. If all of a sudden they're testing a couple of drugs right now, if all of a sudden we get our arms around the virus and we start going back to work within the next couple of weeks, things might completely shift and we'll get back to solid footing pretty quick. I don't know if that's going to happen though. So we need to rethink it. So we're going to look longer term and say, okay, I want to rethink my whole business model. And what I mean by this is I want you to start thinking about a portfolio of business, not a conglomerate. A conglomerate does everything, that they do things that are unrelated. Okay, they have different business units that are completely unrelated. I'm talking about the 1 or 2 degrees off of something that you're already doing, a different market niche, a different messaging element, or a different way to deliver it. I'll give you an example that is just me, and it's the way I've done it. And I've talked over and over again about being a portfolio entrepreneur. In this whole idea of being a portfolio entrepreneur is this concept that we get so caught up in making money only one way. We grew up in an industrial age where we were making a wage and we would work that wage job for the rest of our life. We'd get a pension and that was it. Then we started getting into this entrepreneurial age and we're building a business, and the business is the thing that generates our income. But in the business, we're only generating income one way. And when the business shuts down, like a lot of them have right now, we have no way of making income. People that are in the expert space, you're selling knowledge, wisdom, expertise. Some people are out there or have been out there, and I know them and I've known them for years. They want to be a speaker. So they're out there as a speaker. I've got a friend that I ran into the airport, and he's literally on the road 200 days a year keynoting at different conferences. But that's his sole way of making income. Well, guess what? He's not making a dime right now. And so the thing is that when I first started in my business as a CPA, I needed to get hired by attorneys. And they didn't want to hire me because I hadn't had any experience testifying. So in order to get past that, I started to go and speak. So we're talking about in the 1990s, early 1990s. So I'm aging myself here. In the early 1990s, I started to speak to try and get myself out there because we didn't really have the tools and technology we had today. So I was speaking, I was writing articles, I was doing press releases, and I was networking. And I was writing books and all that stuff. So I was speaking for free. I was writing. I was doing workshops. I was doing all these things for free so I could get the gig. I could get paid because they would hire me and then I'd get paid. And then someone came to me and said, do you know that you could get paid to speak? I'm going, what? I can get paid to speak? Are you kidding me? And they go, yeah. So I started checking it out. And so then I realized that instead of doing 4 or 5 things to get the gig and get paid, what happens if I'm getting paid doing those 4 or 5 things to get the gig to get paid? So like now I got paid to speak. I got paid to do workshops. I got paid to write, and I got the gig and got paid. So I had 4 or 5 different income streams, and then I created courses to get paid. Same knowledge, repackaged differently. So when things shift, an industry shifts, you can't do it. You know, I get cancer, coronavirus, my mom goes in the hospital. I just turned some of the income streams off and ratchet up the other ones because I have a portfolio of income streams instead of a single flow of income stream. Does that make sense? I'd start looking at your business model and say, what is it going to look like on the other side? How do we make sure that we can build this on the other side? So I'd re-look at your business model. I'd reattach myself to a new vision. And get really clear on what my resource requirements are. Requirements. What do I mean by that? I mean that you're gonna, I'll spell that out. So you're gonna you're gonna reinvent your business model probably. You're gonna look at doing possibly new things, which means that you might be in a situation where you're going, I need to learn how to do this Zoom thing. Me, I'm doing a live event. I had a live event planned for April. I got to do it completely virtual. We're doing it. We're doing 4 days of training, 4 days of training virtually, you know, and I got a whole bunch of people and we're going to do it virtually. We're going to do breakout groups. We're going to do all this stuff, but I got to learn it. I got all this technology around me. I'm testing, I'm doing different things to learn it. So what are your resource requirements? In other words, what are the gaps that you need to learn, the skill sets, those things that are going to serve you moving forward as we get through this, and get that in place. So that's what I would do, the 6 weeks, the 90 days, and the 180 days. Does that make sense? Cool. All right. So now let me just look at this. Couple things is I want to take you through. Oh, let me just really quickly show. So I have this cost evaluator. I'm going to give you. I'm going to show you how to get this one. This is when you do in step 1 in Stabilize. When you're going through your costs, you're going to use this to figure out what's going to be negotiated, what you're going to keep, what you're going to cut, how much is saved in here, what the expense is, whether it's a want or a need. You're going to go through it and use this tool to make that happen. The second, so I gave you the second tool. The third tool is the 6-week planner. The second tool is your skills repackager. Okay, what's the solution and the market connection in looking at your skill set and saying, how can I repackage it? You know, what is the impact on the market? What's the solution? In order to get these, okay, let's see how this works. All right, in order to get these, and then I want to get into the CARE Act really quickly. I'm going to do a deeper dive into the CARE Act real quickly. So to get a copy of the slides and those worksheets, you can either go to melabraham.com/chaos download, or take your phone right now or your iPad and take the camera and grab the QR code. It'll take you to the download immediately right now. Okay, so I'll leave that up as I talk and get a glass of water. So you'll get the worksheets, you'll get them. There's no opt-in. It's a straight download PDF, and use them. Are you getting a 404 error? Please tell me you're not getting a 404 error. Is it working? If not, I'll put it in an email to you guys. It's working. Okay, cool. All right. All right. Oh, with the QR reader, it's not working. Yeah, I just use the camera. Just use the camera. I don't know. Cool. All right. So let's do this. Let me get through really quickly some of the elements of the CARE Act, and then I'll take some questions. Is that cool? All right. So here's the CARE Act. This just got signed into law because I think this will give you some breathing room. Now, I'm gonna give you a CYA. I am not a I started reading this, so this is 880 plus pages. I'm not through the whole thing, and it's so convoluted, and there's so many qualifiers. I'm going to give you the best information that I have right now, and it may change as we go forward. They're still sifting through it, but let me give you some of the high points. This got signed into law on Friday, this last Friday, and it's meant to help businesses and employees kind of sustain themselves. It's not a long-term solution. It is to get us over this hump and to move us forward. So they passed this thing called the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, called the CARES Act. It's a $2 trillion package. I actually think it's more than that when I start looking at the numbers. That gives $10 billion in specialized loans. We'll talk about those loans through the SBA, and a second $350 billion for what we call paycheck or payroll protection loans to help small business. I'll talk about that too. And so it expands unemployment benefits to include contractors. So if you're a solopreneur or a contractor or a gig worker, you now have the opportunity potentially to get unemployment payments to you. And it gives you a supplemental payment. And you might qualify to get a grant for up to 10 grand. So let's just look at some of the key elements here really quickly. There's going to be a direct payment probably by the end of April coming to your bank account, your mailbox. I'm not sure how they're going to disperse it. They're saying $1,200 per adult, $500 for every a child that is a dependent on an adult's tax return, assuming your income is for individuals less than 75,000, for married above less than 150,000, and it phases out, I think, about $5 every $100 bucks. But there is some payment that is coming to pass in there. And they're using as a foundation to calculate this, your 2018 or 2019 tax returns. But, because here's the problem, I said this on the last one, I go, what, that's brilliant. 2018, 2019, y'all were making money. You need the money now, you're not making money now, and they're not using that. But here's what they're gonna do is that when you file your 2020 tax return, if the income has gone down enough, they will, if you file the 2020 tax return, the income has gone down enough, they'll make up the difference on your tax refund. At least that's what they're saying, okay? So they'll true it up, it just won't be there for you right away if your income's too high. Unemployment, so you'll get your regular state unemployment if you qualify, but federal will supplement it for $600 per week. Now, there is some confusion here. I see 39 weeks. I have seen everything from 4 weeks to 4 months to 39 weeks. So somewhere between 4 weeks and 39 weeks, you can get $600. And as soon as I figure out what the real story is, I'll let you know. But bottom line is you should, if you're unemployed, you should be able to get $600 a week in addition to the regular unemployment through your state. This all has to go through the state. Yeah, Canadians, talk amongst yourselves. I know this is an American act. I'm sorry. So some of these other ones are smaller things. Let me just talk about the loans real quick because these are the two big things. There's two kinds of loans, and so the two kinds of loans are the payroll protection program and the EIDL program. This is the SBA. Well, they're both overseen by the SBA. One is done directly with the SBA. The economic injury disaster loan is done directly with the SBA. The payroll protection is done with an approved lender from the SBA. So there's 1,800 or so lenders that are approved by the SBA, and you would go to your bank or your lender and say, are you approved to do this loan? And they can then take you through the process. Here's what they say. Its uses are payroll. On one side, it's payroll, employee salaries, mortgage interest, and rent and utilities, business related. This is to keep the doors open and keep your people paid, is why it's called a payroll protection program. Okay. The use on the EIDL is payroll, other debts, accounts payable. It's more operating expenses plus payroll. One, you can get, the way they calculate it is they look at your payroll from February 15, 2019 to February 15, 2020, take 2.5 times the monthly average. And they adjust that average. If you made more than 100,000 in salary, they'll adjust it down to anything in excess of 100,000 doesn't count, okay? And so you can get up to $10 million or 2.5%. I don't think you want to see my emails, but 2.5 times the monthly payroll up to $10 million, whichever is less, okay? This loan, you can get up to $2 million. The rate's 4% versus 3.75%. The term, the payroll protection loan is up to 10 years, but you can go no payments, no interest for the first 6 to 12 months. The SBA loan, the IDL loan, is up to 30 years. The payment protection program, you get 100%. You have the ability to get things forgiven if you use it for the right things. And the list of things, the hoops you have to jump through are really hard. Not really hard. They're just really complicated in the sense that if your wages go down a certain amount, so you've got to prove it. So if you're going to look at these things, you're going to need to get someone to sit with you to go through it. You got to go through it in detail to see what really fits for you and what makes sense. Okay. And so, but this one can be forgiven, whereas the one from the SBA will not be forgiven. It's a loan. But when you do the loan, the fast track loan that they just got the site up Sunday night, so you can apply for it. You apply for this loan, and before they even qualify for the loan, they'll give you a $10,000 emergency cash advance grant. If you don't qualify for the loan, you still keep the grant. If you don't qualify for the loan, you still keep the grant. I'll fix the link, no problem. And do it that way. But so what I would tell you to do is potentially get on there. Literally, I did it just to understand what it takes to go through their process. This thing is a freaking 10-minute deal. It's like, what's my revenue? What's my business? What's my kind of business? What kind of entity it is, and all of that stuff. And then click the bunch of boxes and make sure you click the box that you want to be considered for the $10,000 advance, and boom, you're in. And now you got yourself a place in line. They may or may not give you the 10K. If they give you the 10K, great. If they don't, that's fine. They'll come to you and say, we need this for the loan, or we've approved the loan of this much. And you have the choice at that point. Do I keep it or do I turn down the loan? Okay. So this is really quickly for the CARES Act. I'm going to do a deeper dive on this. I'll probably do it live on Facebook, on my Facebook page in the next day or two. So we'll go deeper into that. So that's it. I wanted to give you as much as I possibly could from a teaching standpoint, and then field as many questions as I possibly can before we get cut off and everything. So hopefully this will help you. Hopefully you found this of value, and the whole purpose of this is just to give you a glimpse of light, and know that we have the opportunity to see this thing through. This will pass. I don't know when, I don't know how long, I don't know any of that. I don't have the crystal ball, but I do know that we've been through something similar before. I've been through it in 2001. I've been through it in 2008. And may this be the last time I do it in my lifetime and your lifetime. So, so this is going on. If you've got questions, hit me up, let me know, and I can either unmute you or type the question in and let me see if I can help you out. Thank you for all the kind words. Whoa, interesting irony, shutting down most of the private enterprise. Oh, well, we'll see what happens. You're right. It wasn't a question, Rolf. I know. I think they just felt like they had to do something quick. Questions, anything coming up? Or say, question, do you need to have an active business license to get an SBA relief loan or grant? You should have an active business. They don't say a business license. That business license is typically a county issue and not a federal or state issue. So as long as you've been in business prior to February 15th, I believe, or January 31st, one of those two dates, then you can apply. If you started your business after that date, then you don't qualify. Yep, it's February 15th. Okay. So yeah, it's Don. It's not just EIN, because you can do it as a sole proprietor also. So it can be under Social Security too. Oh, something just went by. It's a good time to improve our product or just dial down the minimal viable product. I want to improve how I serve my students so it will mean more costs going into my business and it can be more scalable, but it may mean more cost to my students. So I would look at things in two fashions, Rosa. It's a great question. Is one, how can I serve them right now? Remember, more for the same or the same for less. First, do that. When you start looking at your 180-day plan and revising your business model, then you can look at how to improve the product and how you might want to revamp the product. Remember, right now they're in the bottom part of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let's get them what they need right now. Let's serve them where they're at. Let's get them moving forward. Let's give them micro successes to build loyalty, to build staying power, and to get cash flow in. That would be my suggestion. Okay. Dr. Sheeran, let's see. I am at the tail end of the process for purchasing a house. I'm getting great interest in just a bit wild timing. Okay. I have a question. So tell me what the question is. I guess I wanted your input on what to look out for. So this is it's an interesting question. Buying a house during these times, there's a couple things. I know that you're getting a great interest rate. The question is, one, are you getting a good deal on the house? One. Two, are you putting are you coming in with a lot of money down? Because here's the concern that I would have, is that if this thing goes on prolonged, okay, there are businesses that will not come back. And what that means is that it's going to have an impact on the, real estate market. And so real estate values will start to drop. And so is it possible that maybe you lose the interest rate, but you get a better deal? I don't know. I don't have that crystal ball, but I do think that the longer this goes on, the real estate market isn't as sensitive as the stock market. The stock market is like an adolescent teenager with the hormonal swings, and you're going to watch those hormonal swings, and they're going to go up and down and run around. The real estate market will slowly take. Now, in 2008 was different because the real estate market was the cause of the drop because of the way they were doing the loans and everything. But if this thing stays for a while, what's happening is businesses aren't going to be in commercial real estate. Commercial real estate is going to lose their value because they're not getting rents. Rents are being deferred. They don't have tenants. People are going to be struggling with their homes. And so it's going to hit real estate. So there's a possibility that the value goes down. I don't want to tell you not to buy it. I just want you to be aware that that's the case, is make sure that you're buying it right. The money that you make on a real estate deal is not on the sale. The money that you make on a real estate deal is on the buy side. And I know that my real estate agent is on the training, Luis, and he would acknowledge that just the same. He's been through it with me when we've negotiated deals. So cool question. Hopefully that helps. For the 6-week plan, could you please go over how to determine the critical turning points? Noel, the key with the 6-week plan is the critical turning points are the milestones that will tell you you're on track. So they're different for everyone. So I know that if I'm intending for this plan to start bringing in cash flow is going to be one of the critical turning points. If we're not getting sales, if we're not getting clients, or they're starting to drop off, it's a critical turning point. It depends on your business. But there's going to be 2 or 3 things that if we just keep our fingers on that pulse will tell us, is this plan going right or not? But it's dependent upon the plan. I know that doesn't give you a solid answer, but a direct answer, but it's based on that. That's how I would look at it. Sounded like everyone could benefit from applying the disaster loan if they got the $10,000. They could keep it even though they choose not to follow over the loan. One of my students said that it sounds like maybe it's true. It does sound like it. There is a question about if you use it for something other than payroll in the first 8 weeks of getting it, that there might be a recovery on it. But it's unclear from reading the act And so I'm waiting for clarity on that. So what I would say is get your place in line and then make the decision when the time comes, because we'll have more. This just happened on Friday. They just got the SBA site up Sunday night. So it's just a couple of days old. We'll get more clarity probably just within the week, and we'll know more about that. But the point being is that they've allocated limited funds for these things. You want to get your place in line is what I'm saying. So, any suggestions on how I might provide increased value to some of my corporate clients who finance oil and gas airplane parts and are sinking fast? Oh my gosh, Rolf, that is probably the next to worst combination that you can have. They're serving oil and gas and airplane parts. Both of them are in the tank. So, gosh, I'm not sure. Thank you, Bob. I'm not sure that I have a distinct thing here. I think what we need to start looking at, Rolf, is what are the things that you can do to provide them from a leadership standpoint and tools that allow them to navigate either the transition or a pivot in their business. I don't know that, oil and gas, they may not have the opportunity or the ability to pivot. They're in a commodity space. The one company that I'm on the board of, one of the companies, we deal with commodities, which makes it really, really challenging because you're hostage to the commodity pricing. The airplane parts, clearly nothing is buying in. Now they've got part of the bit. Well, here's another question for Rolf: are these companies U.S. based or Canadian based? Because the U.S. based, the CARES Act actually has, I think, $58 billion allocated to airlines and travel and all of that. Now there's some hooks and there's some clawbacks in there that I didn't really read that because I wasn't dealing in that. But like I've heard some rumor that the government gets a stake in the company or something. I don't know. But if they're U.S. based, tell them to look at and they need to get themselves some breathing room. See if there are provisions in the CARES Act that will allow them to sustain themselves for a period of time as they move through this. Because the other way to look at it is, are there assembly lines that they're using that are now dormant that could be used to assemble other things? I mean, look, GM is making inhalators and stuff like that. And so I think we just need to start looking and having conversations. If you can get a brain trust in the room that says, I remember the scene in Apollo 13 where Ed Harris came into the group and he says, they're up there, and he dumped a box on the table and said, this is all they have up there. They will not die on my watch. So figure out how you're going to get them home. And I think that if we get them all in the room and start having conversations around what's possible and what, forget their, what could we do? Not limiting it, not filtering it prematurely, but let's just throw all the ideas, put them up on the wall on Post-it notes, and start qualifying them and not disqualifying them right from the get-go. Solution connecting and marketing. So yeah, Aaron, I will. Thank you, Ava. Are you understanding the small business can apply for both as long as you track the dollars and expenses separately and they do not overlap? Lori, this is a great question. The payroll, my understanding was that and it's, again, this one of those gray areas. I do not think they can apply for both the payroll protection program and the EIDL. I think if you apply for one, it disqualifies you for the other. I don't think you can apply for both, but I heard a commentator today saying, I'm not sure. I think that they might allow that. So I don't know 100%, Lori, but from my reading of it is you can't. Okay? Canadian, Europe together, so they're not going to get it. Their financing customers are defaulting on them. Oh, that's good. That's not good. All right. Boom. Yeah, so you're right, Lori. I heard that you can't do the payroll protection program and defer the payroll taxes. Yeah, there's an element where you can defer paying the payroll taxes, but you're going to do one or the other. This is why they touted all this and they said, we got all this stuff for you. And then they don't tell you what the qualifiers are and the disqualifiers are. And so there's all this stuff, but you can't use all this stuff. And we're still sorting it through. Like I said, 880 pages. And so I mean, my evening reading, I'm loads of fun in the evening right now. So Steve says you can apply for them, but there is an adjustment if you get the EIDL. Okay, cool. So let's go back. I think, Aaron, you asked a quick question. Where is it? So you were asking about one of the worksheets. So the question here is this, is that if I'm going to look at my expenses, I'm going to look at the amount that I'm going to spend. One, I'm also going to look at, so this should be expenses and skills. Okay. And this may be where it was caught. So this should have skills up here also. So then I would look at it and say, either an expense, I'm going to buy something or learn something. The question is, what solution does it provide to people? In other words, if you know, like Aaron, you know stuff about travel. So you say, I've got all these skills. So if I just take that out, it'll probably be easier. If I take all this out and I say, it's skills, and I list all the different skills and strengths that I have, okay? And I look at it and say, these skills and strengths will solve these types of problems. So now I have a set of skills, I have a set of problems that they solve, and now I look at it and say, these markets have these problems. And I decide which ones I'm going to bridge to. Hopefully does that make sense, Aaron? Does that help clarify that? Let me know. Yes. All right, cool. Rosa, I need to pay a consultant or a CPA to advise me. Would that be covered under the EIDL? I don't know if it would or not. It would be tax deductible though, if it's business related. So, yeah, awesome. Other questions, beginner question. In line with the Maslow pyramid, would communication relationship issues be a good mastermind topic for family businesses? Communication and relationship, it could be, but the question is, are they sitting back? The question is, what's causing the communication relationship, which this triggers something else, Amina, is that I said that we had a health problem that created an economic problem. The longer this goes on, this economic problem is going to create an emotional problem, a psychological problem. Because you have individuals sitting at home, not feeling productive, not being, feeling like their life has meaning at times. And it can really bring them down. You've got people that maybe are in tenuous relationships that become more problematic. You've got people that are in good relationships, but because of money problems, they become tenuous relationships. So I think the idea of relationship issues and communication may be a big thing, but I think, like Kevin taught me, was what's happening before that. And what's happening before that is the cause of this is the turmoil that's going on in their life. So if the question isn't necessarily communication relationship, the question is, how are you going to message it so it meets them where they're at in the conversation they're having in their head. Hopefully that makes sense. Cool. Linda, you're so on point. People start to thrive when we contribute, and so this is so true. So if there aren't any questions, let me just close out with a couple things, because I think it's important. We've gone for a while. I will continue to do this. I'm going to do other lives. I want to see everyone get back on their feet. I want to see everyone see that bright light. I want to see you transition. This might be 6 weeks. It might be 6 months. It might be a year or two, and everything. I hope it isn't, but I can't guarantee it. So I want us to be prepared. I want us to take action. I want us to be the proactive people on that first framework that I walked through in doing that. Here's how I look at things. And this came out of my cancer journey, is that we've all had an opportunity and given slices of life. And we've been given a finite amount of slices of life. And I knew that going in, that, hey, we only live so long, type of a thing. But I didn't take it seriously until I was handed the cancer diagnosis, and I realized, oh, pardon the expression, but this shit's real. I mean, that how long am I going to be here? And all of that. And so here's how I look at this, is I realized that because we have a finite amount of slices of life, we have to be very intentional about who we give those slices to. I say no to a lot of things these days, but I say yes to a lot of things. And the reason I will say yes is because it's only when I know that when I give that slice of life away, which I know that I can never, ever get back, okay, that I'm going to be able to give it everything I got. Because I also know that every single one of you on this call and watching the replay and doing all of that, you gave me a slice of your life. And you'll never get that life back, that slice of life. And so I want to make sure that value exchange is great. And so the question is, how are you going to spend the slices of life? Because we've been given 3 gifts. The first gift is this, is that you've been given a gift of your time, okay? You've been given a gift of your time. And we don't know how long that time is, but we do know that we can use our time as we see fit, and we make it as valuable as possible. And so the question is, how are you going to choose to use that gift? The second gift that we've been given is this, is that we've been given the gift of talent. Talent that we developed over time, or talent that was just given to us, that we just was innate in doing this, okay? The question is, how are you going to use those talents? How are you going to use those talents to make a difference? How are you using those talents to improve other people's lives, to make a difference, and to build a legacy right here and now? And then the third gift that we've been given is this, is treasures. The treasures of the relationships we have, the people that we care about, the people that are around us, the people that support us. Here's what I know, is that through the cancer, I realized that doctors fought for me. My wife fought for me. I fought for me. My son, my friends, everyone fought for me. And the one thing that I know is that if I don't do something productive, useful, and meaningful with my time, with my talents, with my treasures, that I'm disrespecting them and the time they took to fight for me and give me back this next decade and decades and decades of life. And I think that we have a time right now to reflect on that and start to ask ourselves how I'm going to use my time, my talents, and treasures, even in this time of need, to know that we can do better, we can do well, we can get through this, and you're not alone. I'm with you. Everyone else here is with you. We're here to serve. And the one thing for certain to do this, to do this and get through this, is the one last thing is this: don't ever, ever, ever stop dreaming. Keep it going, all right? I hope that you found this of value. I hope this helps you as you start to move through this money chaos, and that you start to put these things in place, and that you get on the other side of this. You're going to be a new person. You're going to be a different person, but we will make sure that this doesn't happen again, that you have an opportunity to do this. We are going to be joined. We're going to lock arms, shoulder to shoulder, toe to toe, and we're going to walk forward as a humanity, as a society. We will endure, and we'll continue to endure. And I'm there with you every step of the way. So thank you for being here, staying with me for as long as we've gone. Blessings to you. And if there's anything I can do, reach out to me on my Facebook page and let me know. And stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy, and God bless you all. Cheers.